Hajin stood at the colony's observation deck, his eyes fixed on the massive alien ship that had appeared in Novus Prime's orbit. The ship looked like a giant silver butterfly, its wings reflecting the light of the system's twin suns. As the colony's top diplomat, he knew the next few hours would change human history forever. "They're called the Celestial Dominion," Yuri said, joining her brother at the window. She held up her tablet, showing him the first images they had received from the alien ship. "Their biology is amazing. They're twice as strong as humans and can lift 10 times their body weight." Hajin nodded, his face serious. "And their queen thinks we're weak." The first message they sent made that very clear. The message had been simple: "Your colony has been noticed by the Celestial Dominion. Prepare to be evaluated by Queen Nix's envoy. Resistance is unwise given your physical limitations. They're coming down now." Ta Wan's voice crackled over the speaker. The defense commander's tone was tense. "3 ships. Should I power up our shields?" "No," Hajin said firmly. "We show them we come in peace." He straightened his dark blue diplomatic uniform and headed for the landing area. Yuri followed close behind, her scientific equipment ready to gather data. The alien ships landed with perfect precision. They were smaller than Earth ships, but more elegant, like giant dragonflies made of metal. When the doors opened, Hajin had to stop himself from stepping back. The aliens were tall, nearly 8 feet, with skin that shimmered like pearls. Their 4 arms moved with grace, and their golden eyes seemed to look right through the human welcoming party. The envoy, wearing what looked like living metal armor, walked forward. "I am First Envoy Kai of the Celestial Dominion," the alien announced. Its voice was deep and musical. "We are surprised your species has managed interstellar travel, given your limitations." Hajin smiled politely, though his hands tightened at his sides. "I am Hajin, diplomatic chief of Novus Prime Colony. We welcome you and hope to learn from each other." The envoy's upper arms crossed in what seemed like amusement. "Learn? What could your kind teach us? Our scans show your bodies are fragile. You need machines to lift heavy objects. You cannot survive in space without thick suits." The Queen was right to be skeptical. Before Hajin could answer, a loud crash came from the nearby construction site. Everyone turned to see a support beam falling from the new science building. 2 workers were in its path. Without hesitation, Jinnah, the colony's chief engineer, ran forward. She pulled out her portable gravity manipulator, a device she had invented herself. With quick movements, she adjusted its settings and activated it. The beam slowed just enough for the workers to dive away. The aliens watched in silence as human emergency teams rushed in, working together smoothly to secure the area. Jinnah was already checking the building's structure with her devices, calling out orders to her team. The envoy's golden eyes narrowed. "You rely on machines to save lives. We rely on our minds to create solutions," Hajin replied calmly. "And on each other. That is our strength." "Interesting." The envoy's tone was cold. "The Queen will want to see this herself. Prepare your colony for her arrival within 3 cycles of your sun. She will determine if you are worthy of continued existence in our space." As the aliens returned to their ships, Yuri moved closer to her brother. That could have gone better. Hajin watched the ships take off, his expression determined. "No, this is perfect. The Queen wants to see us herself. That's our chance to show them what humans are really capable of." "And if we fail?" Ta Wan asked, joining them. "Then we do what humans have always done," Hajin said. "We prove them wrong." Queen Nix's arrival made the envoy's ships look small. Her vessel was massive, shaped like a floating palace of silver and gold. As it descended through Novus Prime's atmosphere, the colony's children pressed their faces against windows to watch. The Queen brought half her fleet, Ta Wan reported from the defense center. 20 ships in orbit, all armed. Hajin adjusted his collar and looked at the welcome party. Yuri had set up her scientific equipment nearby, while Jinnah monitored the colony systems. Du-hyun stood ready with his medical team, just in case. The Queen's ship landed with a grace that seemed impossible for its size. When the doors opened, even the aliens from the first visit bowed deeply. Queen Nixis emerged, and He-jin heard several humans gasp. She was beautiful in an alien way, standing 10 feet tall with 6 arms and skin that changed colors like the surface of a soap bubble. Her eyes were deep purple, and she moved as if gravity barely affected her. "So these are the humans," she said, her voice carrying easily across the landing area. "They look even smaller in person." He-jin stepped forward and bowed respectfully. "Welcome to Novus Prime, Your Majesty. We are honored by your visit." The Queen walked past him as if he hadn't spoken, using her strength to easily pick up a heavy cargo container nearby. "Look how they need machines to move such simple things," she said to her guards. That's when Yuri spoke up. "Actually, Your Majesty, we'd love to show you how we adapt to different challenges. Would you like to see our research center?" The Queen turned, seeming surprised that someone had dared to redirect her attention. She studied Yuri for a moment, then nodded. "Show me." The tour was tense. Queen Nixis watched with barely hidden disdain as Yuri explained human innovations. But when they reached Jinnah's engineering lab, something changed. Jinnah was testing a new exosuit design, lifting weights that even the Queen's people would struggle with. "We don't just accept our limitations," she explained, not showing any fear of the alien ruler. "We overcome them. Through artificial means," the Queen noted. "Through intelligence and determination," He-jin corrected politely. "Each species has its gifts. We use ours to grow stronger." Suddenly, alarms blared through the colony. Du-hyun's voice came over the speakers. "Medical emergency in Section 7. Mining accident." Before anyone could react, the humans sprang into action. Jinnah quickly shed her exosuit, already calling up building schematics on her tablet. Yuri grabbed her medical scanner, and He-jin moved to escort the Queen to safety. "I will observe," Queen Nixis declared, following the rushing humans. They reached Section 7 to find 2 miners trapped behind a collapsed tunnel entrance. The aliens watched as the humans worked together seamlessly. Jinnah analyzed the structure while Du-hyun prepared emergency treatments. Other miners brought equipment, and within minutes they had a plan. "The rocks are too unstable for machines," one miner reported. "We'll have to do this carefully, by hand." Queen Nixis stepped forward. "My people can move these rocks easily." "With respect, Your Majesty," He-jin said, "this requires more than strength. One wrong move could bring down the whole tunnel." The Queen watched as the humans formed a chain, passing rocks hand to hand, using simple tools and careful coordination. They worked tirelessly, even though their muscles clearly ached. After an hour, they reached the trapped miners. "Fascinating," Queen Nixis said quietly. "You choose the hard way. We choose the right way," He-jin replied, helping Du-hyun stabilize the injured miners. "Every time." The Queen's color shifted to a deep blue. "Perhaps there is more to observe here than I first thought." The warning came from Jinnah's monitoring stations first. She burst into the diplomatic meeting between He-jin and Queen Nixis, her face pale with worry. "We have a massive solar storm approaching," she announced, pulling up a holographic display. "Both suns are releasing huge bursts of energy. Nothing like we've ever seen before." Queen Nixis stood, her pearl-like skin shifting to a deep red. "Our ships have the strongest shields in the known galaxy. We will be fine." "Your Majesty," Yuri said, studying the data on her tablet, "these energy readings are off the charts. This isn't a normal storm." The Queen's guards moved closer to her, but she waved them away with her multiple arms. "Our technology is superior to yours in every way. We do not need human advice." He-jin watched the alien ships in orbit through the window. They were beautiful, their shields already creating a rainbow effect around them. But something didn't feel right. "Jinnah," he called, "what about our colony shields?" "We're preparing them now," she replied, her fingers flying over her control panel. But we've developed our shields differently. We use multiple layers and can adapt them as needed. Suddenly, Taiwan's voice boomed through the speakers. Energy spike incoming. Everyone brace. The first wave hit like a physical blow. The colony's buildings shook, but their shields held. Through the windows, they watched in horror as the alien ship's beautiful shields began to flicker. Impossible, Queen Nixis shouted, her color now a sickly yellow. Our shields cannot fail. They're not failing, Jinnah explained quickly, but they're not designed for this type of storm. Your shields are stronger, yes, but ours are more flexible. Another wave hit. This time, several of the alien ship's shields flared bright white before going dark. Emergency lights began flashing throughout the colony. Your Majesty, He Jin said firmly, we need to make a decision now. Your ships in orbit are in danger. The Queen stood tall, all 6 arms rigid with tension. What do you suggest, human? We can extend our shield network to protect your ships, but we'll need your help. Our power systems weren't designed to cover this much area. Do-hyun rushed in, medical kit in hand. We're getting reports of injuries on the alien ships. Their artificial gravity is failing. Queen Nixis looked at her people, then at the humans rushing to help. Her color shifted to a deep purple of concern. What do you need from us? She asked. Hejin. Jinnah has a plan, he replied, nodding to the engineer. Jinnah stepped forward, showing a quick diagram. We can link our power systems to your ship's cores. It's risky, but if we combine our technologies, we might save everyone. Another wave of energy rocked the colony. Through the windows, they could see more alien ships losing power. Risky how? The Queen demanded. We've never tried anything like this before, Jinnah admitted. If we make one mistake, we could lose both shield systems. Queen Nixis studied the humans before her, Hejin standing ready to help. Jinnah already calculating power distributions, Yuri analyzing the storm data, and Do-hyun preparing for casualties. You would risk your colony to save us, she asked, even after how we treated you. That's what humans do, Hejin said simply. We help those in need. Always. The Queen's color shifted to a soft blue of decision. Tell us what to do. The colony's control room buzzed with activity as humans and aliens worked side by side. Jinnah had taken charge, directing both species with clear, simple commands. Her hands moved quickly over the control panels while she explained the plan. We need to link our shield generators to your ship's power cores, she said, pointing to a diagram. But someone has to go up there to make the connections manually. Queen Nixis stood nearby, watching as her mighty ships drifted helplessly in orbit. Another wave of solar energy washed over them, and more warning lights flashed red. Our people cannot survive in space for long without our shields, she said, her skin turning a worried gray color, even with protection suits. Hejin stepped forward. Then we'll do it. Taiwan, how many space suits do we have ready? 6 suits prepped in charge, Taiwan replied from his station. But the radiation levels are extremely high. It's going to be dangerous. Do-hyun looked up from his medical screens. I've prepared the radiation treatment pods, but there's only so much exposure the human body can take. You'll have 15 minutes max out there. Queen Nixis watched in surprise as human volunteers immediately stepped forward. No hesitation, no fear, just determination. I'll lead the first team, Hejin said, already putting on his spacesuit. Jinnah, you'll guide us from here. The Queen moved closer, all 6 arms clasped in concern. You would risk death to save those who doubted you. Every life matters. Hejin replied simply, checking his suit seals. Besides, we're all stuck in this storm together now. The rescue teams launched in 3 small ships, each carrying 2 humans. Queen Nixis and her advisors watched the screens as the tiny vessels approached their massive ships. The radiation is increasing, Yuri reported, monitoring the life signs of the rescue teams. Their suits are holding, but barely. Jinnah's voice was calm over the radio as she guided them. "Jin, you need to connect the power coupling to the main hub. It's the large silver panel on your left." Through the exterior cameras, they watched Jin float toward the alien ship. His movements were careful but quick, fighting against the time limit set by the radiation. "These connections are huge," Jin reported, "designed for your people's strength. Use the gravity manipulator," Jinnah suggested. "The one we showed you earlier, Your Majesty." The Queen watched as the humans used their tools and minds to overcome their physical limitations. Where her people would have used brute force, they used clever devices and teamwork. More solar waves hit, shaking both ships and colony. Jin nearly lost his grip, but caught himself quickly. 10 minutes left before maximum radiation exposure, Du-hyun warned. They could all see Jin's hands shaking as he worked, but his voice stayed steady. "Almost there. Second team, start on the backup connections." Queen Nixis turned to Yuri. "Why do they push themselves so hard? They could wait for the storm to pass." "No, they couldn't," Yuri replied, watching her brother work. "Your people might not survive that long. For humans, that means there's no choice at all." The Queen's color shifted to a deep gold of understanding as she watched these small, physically weaker beings fight to save her people. Perhaps, she thought, she had been measuring strength by the wrong standards all along. "Power coupling is failing." Jinnah's voice cut through the tense silence of the control room. "The connection isn't strong enough to handle the energy flow." On the main screen, they could see Jin and his team still working on the alien ships. Their suits were covered in a dangerous golden glow from the radiation. 5 minutes left before critical exposure, Du-hyun warned, watching their vital signs closely. "They need to come back now." Queen Nixis moved closer to the screen, her pearl skin shifting between worried purple and angry red. "Your people must retreat. The radiation will kill them." "No." Jin's voice came through the speakers, breathless but determined. "We're too close." "Jinnah, what if we reroute through the secondary systems?" Jinnah's fingers flew over her control panel. "It could work, but someone would have to hold the coupling manually while the power stabilizes. The radiation levels there are even higher." "I'll do it," Jin said. "Brother, no," Yuri shouted, but Jin was already moving toward the most damaged alien ship. Queen Nixis watched in shock as the human diplomat pulled himself along the ship's hull. His movements were slower now, fighting against exhaustion and radiation exposure. "His heart rate is too high," Du-hyun reported. "Body temperature rising. The suit can't handle much more." Through the camera feed, they could see Jin reach the secondary coupling. His hands were shaking as he pulled out tools from his belt. "Talk me through it, Jinnah," he said, his voice rough. "You'll need to override the safety protocols first," Jinnah explained. "Then hold the coupling in place until the power flow stabilizes. Maybe 3 minutes." 3 minutes. Du-hyun stood up. "He doesn't have 3 minutes. The radiation will." "I can do it," Jin interrupted. Just keep talking to me." The Queen stepped forward, her voice urgent. "Human, you prove nothing by dying. My people would not sacrifice themselves this way." Jin's laugh was weak but genuine. "With respect, Your Majesty, that's why we're different. We don't do this to prove anything. We do it because it needs to be done." They watched as he connected the coupling. Warning alarms blared as radiation levels spiked. 2 minutes to power stabilization, Jinnah reported, her voice shaking. "Tell us what you feel," Yuri said quickly. "Stay with us, brother." "Hot," Jin answered. "Everything's bright. But I can see the alien ship's lights coming back on. It's working." Queen Nixis's color shifted to pure white, the color of amazement for her people. The human was dying, she realized, and still he thought of success. 1 minute, Jinnah called. Jin's vital signs were critical now. His breathing was labored, but his hand stayed steady on the coupling. 30 seconds. 20, 10. Power stabilized. Ta-1 shouted. Shield network is online. Get him back. Multiple voices shouted at once. The rescue team moved quickly, bringing He-Jin back to the colony. Do-hyun and his medical team rushed him straight to the radiation treatment pods. Later, in the medical bay, Queen Nixis stood watching the unconscious human floating in the healing pod. His sister Yuri stood nearby. He knew what would happen. The Queen said softly, yet he did not hesitate. That's human strength, Yuri replied. Not in our muscles, but in our hearts. The Queen's color shifted to deep gold again. Perhaps we have much to learn from each other. Power coupling is failing. Jin-Ah's voice cut through the tense silence of the control room. The connection isn't strong enough to handle the energy flow. On the main screen, they could see He-Jin and his team still working on the alien ships. Their suits were covered in a dangerous golden glow from the radiation. 5 minutes left before critical exposure, Do-hyun warned, watching their vital signs closely. They need to come back now. Queen Nixis moved closer to the screen, her pearl skin shifting between worried purple and angry red. Your people must retreat. The radiation will kill them. No. He-Jin's voice came through the speakers, breathless but determined. We're too close. Jin-Ah, what if we were route through the secondary systems? Jin-Ah's fingers flew over her control panel. It could work, but someone would have to hold the coupling manually while the power stabilizes. The radiation levels there are even higher. I'll do it, He-Jin said. Brother, no, Yuri shouted, but He-Jin was already moving toward the most damaged alien ship. Queen Nixis watched in shock as the human diplomat pulled himself along the ship's hull. His movements were slower now, fighting against exhaustion and radiation exposure. His heart rate is too high, Do-hyun reported, body temperature rising. The suit can't handle much more. Through the camera feed, they could see He-Jin reach the secondary coupling. His hands were shaking as he pulled out tools from his belt. Talk me through it, Jin-Ah, he said, his voice rough. You'll need to override the safety protocols first, Jin-Ah explained. Then hold the coupling in place until the power flow stabilizes. Maybe 3 minutes. 3 minutes. Do-hyun stood up. He doesn't have 3 minutes. The radiation will. I can do it, He-Jin interrupted. Just keep talking to me. The Queen stepped forward, her voice urgent. Human, you prove nothing by dying. My people would not sacrifice themselves this way. He-Jin's laugh was weak but genuine. With respect, Your Majesty, that's why we're different. We don't do this to prove anything. We do it because it needs to be done. They watched as he connected the coupling. Warning alarms blared as radiation levels spiked. 2 minutes to power stabilization. Jin-Ah reported, her voice shaking. Tell us what you feel, Yuri said quickly. Stay with us, brother. Hot, He-Jin answered. Everything's bright. But I can see the alien ship's lights coming back on. It's working. Queen Nixis's color shifted to pure white. The color of amazement for her people. The human was dying, she realized, and still he thought of success. 1 minute, Jin-Ah called. He-Jin's vital signs were critical now. His breathing was labored, but his hand stayed steady on the coupling. 30 seconds. 20. 10. Power stabilized. Ta-1 shouted. Shield network is online. Get him back. Multiple voices shouted at once. The rescue team moved quickly, bringing He-Jin back to the colony. Do-hyun and his medical team rushed him straight to the radiation treatment pods. Later, in the medical bay, Queen Nixis stood watching the unconscious human floating in the healing pod. His sister Yuri stood nearby. He knew what would happen, the Queen said softly, yet he did not hesitate. That's human strength, Yuri replied. Not in our muscles, but in our hearts. The Queen's color shifted to deep gold again. Perhaps Perhaps we have much to learn from each other. He-Jin woke up in the medical bay to find Queen Nixis standing near his pod. Her pearl-like skin was glowing with a soft, golden light he hadn't seen before. Do-hyun was checking his vital signs while Yuri held his hand. "The human awakens," the Queen said, moving closer. "You should not have survived that level of radiation." "Humans are surprisingly tough," Do-hyun said, helping He-Jin sit up. "We evolved on a planet with lots of challenges. We learned to adapt." The Queen watched as He-Jin tried to stand. His legs were shaky, but he refused Yuri's help, pushing himself to stay upright. "Even now," the Queen observed, "you push yourself beyond your limits." "Why?" "Because that's how we grow stronger," He-Jin replied, his voice rough but clear. "Every limit we push, every challenge we face, they all help us improve." Just then, Jinnah rushed into the medical bay. "We have a problem with the shield network. The storm's getting worse, and the power grid is struggling." The Queen's color darkened with concern. "But your people are exhausted. The pilots need rest. The medical team has been working for hours." "Then we'll find another way," He-Jin said, taking a step forward. Though his body was weak, his eyes were determined. "We always do." Taiwan joined them, carrying reports on his tablet. "The colony's backup generators are ready. If we channel power from both species systems differently—" "Wait," the Queen interrupted. "You have a backup plan for your backup plan." "We have backups for our backups," Jinnah said with a tired smile. "And when those fail, we make new plans." The Queen watched as the humans gathered around Jinnah's diagrams. Even He-Jin, still recovering from near-fatal radiation exposure, was offering ideas. They didn't wait for orders or argue about who was in charge. They simply worked together, each adding their own knowledge. "Your Majesty," He-Jin said suddenly, "your people are physically stronger than us. Could they help reinforce the power stations manually? Our people know the systems, but we're too tired to do the heavy lifting." The Queen's color shifted to bright silver, the color of revelation. "You would trust us with your critical systems?" "Of course," He-Jin replied. "We're in this together now." For the first time, the Queen saw the true strength of humanity. It wasn't in their bodies, but in their unbreakable spirit. Their power came from working together, from never giving up, from treating everyone, even those who had doubted them, as worthy of help. "I understand now," she said softly. All 6 of her arms moved in a gesture of deep respect. "Your people are not weak. You simply measure strength differently." "Strength comes in many forms," Yuri agreed. "Physical power is just one kind." The Queen turned to her guards. "Help them. Do exactly as they say. It is time we learned from these humans." As the aliens and humans began working together, He-Jin looked at the Queen. "Your Majesty, after all this is over, would you be interested in learning more about each other? There's so much we could teach each other." The Queen's color became that deep, warm gold again. Now they knew it meant respect and friendship. "Yes," she said. "I believe there is much my people need to learn about strength. Real strength." As the humans and aliens worked together to maintain the shield network, Queen Nixis noticed something interesting. In the colony's main hall, there was a wall covered with pictures and text. She found herself drawn to it during a brief rest period. "This is our history wall," Yuri explained, joining the Queen. "Every human colony has one. It helps us remember where we came from." The Queen studied the images. They showed humans throughout their history, facing countless challenges. There were pictures of early humans hunting huge animals with simple tools, of people building massive structures with basic equipment, of explorers crossing oceans in wooden ships. "Your people were so primitive," the Queen said, but her tone wasn't mocking anymore. It was curious. "We still had to survive," He-Jin said, walking slowly toward them. He was getting stronger, though Do-hyun insisted he use a support cane. "Every species on Earth was stronger, faster, or better armed than us. But we had our minds, our creativity, and most importantly, each other. The Queen's color shifted to a questioning blue. You were not always the dominant species. Far from it, Yuri replied, pointing to different images. We were often the prey, not the predators. We couldn't fly like birds, swim like fish, or run like other animals. We couldn't even survive in most climates without help. Then how did you survive? Jinna joined them, taking a break from her work on the shields. We invented things, made tools, learned to control fire, built shelters. Each generation learned from the last and made things better. The Queen moved along the wall, looking at more recent images. She saw humans exploring space in bulky suits, building colonies on harsh planets, and developing new technologies. Your history is full of moments like this, she realized. Times when you were faced with creatures or challenges far beyond your physical capabilities. And every time, Ta-1 added, we found a way forward, not because we were the strongest, but because we refused to give up. The Queen stopped at a picture of the first human colony on Mars. This environment could have killed you instantly. It tried. Ho-Jin said with a smile. The first colonies failed. People died. But we learned, adapted, and tried again. That's what humans do. Like you did with the radiation, the Queen said softly, her color shifting to gold with streaks of understanding blue. When I saw you willing to die to save my people, I thought it was foolish bravery, but it wasn't, was it? It was experience. Your whole history has prepared you for such moments. We've learned that the impossible just takes a little longer, Jinna said, and usually requires good friends to help. The Queen looked at the tired but determined humans around her. She saw them differently now, not as weak creatures who needed machines, but as survivors who had fought their way up from the bottom of their world's food chain to reach the stars. Your strength, she said slowly, is in never accepting limitations, in always finding another way forward. That's what makes us human, He-Jin agreed. And now maybe we can help each other find new ways forward, together. The Queen's color became a magnificent swirl of gold and silver, respect and revelation combined. Yes, she said, I believe we can. Hashtag the alien queen never believed in human strength until she witnessed it firsthand. Hashtag part 9. New beginnings. 1 month after the great solar storm, the Novus Prime colony looked very different. Alien ships and human vessels shared the orbit peacefully. On the ground, humans and members of the Celestial Dominion worked side by side, building new structures that would serve both species. He-Jin stood in the new diplomatic hall, fully recovered from his radiation exposure. Through the large windows, he could see Jinna teaching a group of aliens about human engineering principles. In another area, alien warriors were showing humans their physical training techniques. Your sister's new research center is impressive, Queen Nixis said, entering the hall. Her color was the warm gold that humans now recognized as friendship. She has already helped our scientists understand how humans adapt so quickly. And your people have helped us improve our buildings, He-Jin replied. They're much stronger now. Though I notice you let us keep our tiny doors as emergency exits. The Queen's color flickered with amusement. A wise precaution. We have learned that preparing for all possibilities is very human. Ta-1 joined them, carrying reports on his tablet. The combined shield network is complete. It's stronger than anything either of us had before. Like many things, the Queen observed, it is better when we work together. Do-hyun arrived next, looking excited. Your Majesty, our medical exchange program is ready. Your healers have amazing knowledge about physical recovery, and they're eager to learn about our mental health techniques. The Queen's color shifted to bright silver. A month ago, I would have said your people were too weak to teach us anything. Now I understand that what I saw as weakness was simply a different kind of strength. We're all strong in different ways, He-Jin agreed. That's why we make such good allies. They walked together to the colony's main square, where humans and aliens had gathered for a special ceremony. Jinnah had built a monument to mark their new alliance, a sculpture showing human and alien hands working together. The queen stood before the crowd, all 6 arms raised in a gesture of unity. 1 month ago, I came to this colony believing I would find a weak species unworthy of the celestial dominion's attention. Instead, I found strength I had never imagined. The humans taught us that true power lies not in physical might, but in determination, adaptation, and most importantly, unity. He stepped forward next, and we learned that strength comes in many forms. Together, we are not just stronger, we are better. This monument represents not just our alliance, but our commitment to learn from each other. The crowd cheered as the Queen and He pressed their hands to the monument together, activating its internal lights. The sculpture began to glow with shifting colors, human innovation powered by alien energy crystals. What comes next? The Queen asked quietly. We explore the galaxy together, He replied. There's so much more to discover, so many new challenges to face, and new kinds of strength to find, the Queen added, her color a beautiful mix of gold and silver. As the celebration continued around them, humans and aliens mingled freely, sharing stories and ideas. The colony that had once faced tension and doubt now stood as a symbol of unity and mutual respect. In the end, it wasn't just the Queen who learned about human strength. Both species discovered that the greatest power of all comes from working together, learning from each other, and facing the universe's challenges as one.